In a time that seems to be focused on social media influencers and celebrities, I wanted to walk back through Satoshi Kon's movie Perfect Blue. Let's cut the bull and get into it. Subscribe if you want to. The movie starts at a festival-like scene where shows are being live-produced, background characters walk around, and we hear conversations of an idol named Mima. We cut to Mima's girl group, Sham, getting ready in the dressing room for their final concert together. Mima plans on announcing that she'll be going solo and attempting a career in acting. With a deep breath, Mima leads the girls on stage. The introduction of this movie cuts between Mima living an ordinary life and Mima performing on stage to show that despite being the definition of famous, she's living a life just like anyone else. You see one of the security guards look at Mima directly, and a strange, spine-chilling smile shows on his face. As Mima is leaving and steps onto the taxi, she hears someone call out, "I'm always looking at Mima's room." We catch a glimpse of what Mima's bedroom looks like. It's super cute, and she even has some cute little fish. It's a very typical room and not exactly something you'd consider to be a pop idol's room. After reading her fan mail, one of the letters linking to Mima's room, Mima calls her mother and says how she truly feels about the pop idol industry. She feels as though it's suffocating and that acting is her next big step. Mima gets a call from the other line, and the person on the other line stays silent. After checking up on her bath, Mima gets a fax that reads "traitor, traitor, traitor" repeatedly. The camera quickly zooms out from Mima's window as the fax machine printing is repeated louder and louder. Mima is practicing her lines for her new acting gig. Who are you? Mima looks around at unrecognizable faces and an unfamiliar environment, feeling overwhelmed and lonely. Or perhaps not lonely, maybe as though everyone is looking at her almost tauntingly. Mima's managers tell the director that they should give her more lines even though she was feeling overwhelmed with just one. And then boom! The manager is shot. The letter that was meant for Mima actually contained an explosion. You can see from the torn letter that this is a warning, the next one will be real. Back at her apartment, Mima's female manager, Rumi, sets up a computer for her to use, in which Mima uses it to find out what Mima's room is all about. Mima asks Remy about the incident with the manager, inquiring that they should have called the police. Remy seems uninterested in the subject as she continues to type. Mima, now alone, scrolls through Mima's room with excitement and anticipation. She's amused by the hyperlink called Mima's Diary, as the entry describes which foot Mima steps off the train with. The poster then goes on to say which grocery store Mima goes to and which items she bought earlier the week, and Mima becomes growingly uncomfortable. Clicking on a hyperlink, Mima asking "Who are you?" can be heard repeated as the sound of the fax printer starts up once more. Rumi and Tadokoro talk about Mima leaving Sham, Rumi asking if it was worth it, and Tadokoro basically saying give it time. Later, at a comic book store, the bodyguard from the beginning of the movie is seen overhearing a conversation some men are having about Mima. It seems as though he's intending to save Mima, whatever that means. We watch as Mima goes to take a step off the train, hesitating as she goes to step off with her left foot as normal. It's at this point of the movie where you're able to notice that things are slowly unraveling for Mima. Watching her sprint out from the train stop she had been at so many times before. Catching herself on camera, she regains her posture and walks onward, a crowd gathering itself outside of her workplace, one man seeming to be the bodyguard. We learn that Sham's new single got top 100 and the girls will celebrate as Mima recalls her first celebration with them. It is clear that Sham will succeed as a duo and Mima reads her new lines. It turns out the new lines that the director has set in place for Mima is that her character develops a personality disorder after being R-worded, so that's fun. Rumi is obviously upset with this drastic decision and insists the script is to change. Mima, on the other hand, says it's okay because she doesn't want to be a pop idol anymore and would prefer to be an actress. She laughs at the idea of her parents watching the scene. Whilst on the train, Mima hallucinates her pop idol self refusing to play the role. She looks at her reflection confused, but we ultimately end up seeing her act out the role. Rumi is obviously the more bothered of the managers and watches the scene with dead eyes. This scene is particularly upsetting because the viewer has to watch as this is all taking place. We know it's scripted and that in the end every party is willingly being put into a non-con situation, and yet the scene is still uncomfortable to watch. Rumi, in tears, walks out as the scene keeps playing. Now this scene really puts things into perspective, and believe me, I wouldn't have added it into this review if it wasn't an important step into psychoanalyzing Mima. She's seen crying while acting, and her expression turns dead and cold as the cameras keep rolling. She scans around the room at unfamiliar faces. She thinks back to being a pop idol, the memory fading to white as if it's no longer a reachable option. Mima gets home that night to feed her fish, but sees all of them floating, presumably dead. Mima sobs and destroys her room, completely in shambles after her long acting day and coming home to her past pets. She screams to herself, revealing that she didn't want to do it but didn't want to trouble others by denying the role. She hears a voice mocking her. She sees her pop idol self in the reflection of the TV. We see someone reading through Mima's diary, finally showing to be the obsessive security guard from earlier typing each entry. During her interviews, Mima plays off the scene as if it was the obvious next step for her career. Some men reading about her in the magazines laugh at the fact that if it were any other member of Sham, they would be angry, but since Mima isn't their favorite, they find the situation laughable. The security guard is seen with his head against the wall and ripped magazine pages around him. Mima goes through Mima's diary, wondering what the person writing the entries is writing. An entry asking for help over and over again is posted, Mima finally succumbing to her derealization and becomes unable to differentiate herself from the real, quote-unquote, real Mima writing the entries. Mima has a conversation between herself and her pop idol self, feeling as though she's tarnished her reputation and would have been better off staying a pop idol. Pop idol Mima, which is what I'll be referring to hallucination Mima or Mima's split personality, manifests into real life, calling the real Mima filthy and tarnished before jumping off of her apartment balcony. Mima is now absolutely horrified and completely untethered from reality, looking out to the dark streets with tears in her eyes and a terrified expression. The director of the show gets to his parking spot, and Sham music echoes through the empty parking garage. The director steps towards the elevator, and it opens with a singular boombox playing Mima's last song. The door to the elevator's open, and the director's body sits lifeless with his eyes gouged out. Well, never mind all that. The popular duo Sham is putting on a show, and Mima is said to be appearing as a special guest. On the ride to the show, Tadakoro tells Mima not to worry about the whole gouging eyes incident, and that there's no way the letter and the stabbing were connected in any way. He's obviously trying his best to be supportive, but he's not doing a very good job. Mima hallucinates pop idol Mima driving past her, muttering, "Serves you right." This is the first time Mima experiences a hallucination around others, causing a halt in traffic. Mima goes to a photo shoot in which the photographer gets her to try going nude while the Sham duo performs on stage. Mima joins them on stage with the same attire that she was seen last on stage with. The security guard has tears welling in his eyes, and the crowd seems excited to have Mima back. Mima feels angry at her managers for making her go back up on stage and making herself even more confused about her identity. Men ogle at the photos of Mima nude, and the security guard tries his best to preserve Mima's status by trying to buy all the magazines. Unfortunately, it's to no avail. I wish I could tell you what's going on with the security guard, but he's definitely the most mysterious and scary character in the whole movie. He hallucinates Mima's undying love for him as a way to give himself reason to do the things he does. He believes that Mima, the actress, is not only a fake Mima, but also actively harmful to the real Mima. It's here that you see that the security guard calls himself, or hallucinates Mima calling him, Me Mania-san. Although I'm sure the name gets lost in translation, Mania is definitely something we'll hit up on later. Rei and Yukiko, the Sham duo, start a podcast together called Idol Shamland. Mima is initially excited to see her friends, but after seeing pop idol Mima sitting at the table with them, runs out in a hurry. Mima chases her hallucination throughout the building and outside in the rain. Pop idol Mima needling through people with no effort, and Mima struggling to try and catch her. Mima steps onto oncoming traffic, and a bus driven by her stalker comes rampaging at her, and Mima wakes up in her room. The TV is on, and she's wearing the same clothes as she was before. The doorbell rings. Rumi comes over to eat sweets and drink tea with Mima. She comments on the fact that people are liking the new Mima, but Mima seems uninterested. Rumi brings up Mima's room and the recent post, asking if someone was harassing Mima and making these entries. Mima comments that the person writing the entries could be more like herself than she is. Mima questions if the two personalities she created are acting on their own, but Rumi reassures her that illusions can't come to life. It turns out that the conversation with Rumi and the scene Mima was acting in ended up blurring together. She accidentally says Rumi's name out loud, and so they're forced to do a second take. Mima wakes up in her room. The TV is on, and she's wearing the same clothes as she was before. The doorbell rings. Rumi comes over to eat sweets and drink tea with Mima. Although Mima says they haven't seen each other in a while, Rumi states that she was just here yesterday. Mima mutters, "Yesterday? Was that real?" losing her sense of time. We're shown that Mima's diary says that she went out shopping, and she's been parading a bag that says FGG. We then see the real Mima reading the diary entry in her room, having forgotten that she went shopping, assuming that the entry was more correct than her memory. The assistant director and photographer watches the recently recorded scenes and hears a ring at the doorbell. He's ordered pizza, but the delivery driver has a weapon in hand. The driver stabs it into the assistant's eye and southern region. The driver stabs him around the house, creating a more than persistent murder scene. We see that the delivery driver is actually Mima, blinded by rage and ignoring the assistant's cries for help. With every stab, Mima remembers a nude photo of hers, fueling her rampage. The director calls for a take 3. Mima wakes up in her room. There is no TV on and she's wearing different clothes. She looks at her hands in fear as if the memories of her stabbing is flooding her mind. The phone rings, Mima's manager asking if she was alright. He states that Murano-san has been killed. The TV is now on and Mima drops her phone in disbelief. She checks the closet and finds the FGG bag filled with bloodied clothes in her closet. Back on set, the crew making the film converses about the recent happenings. Rima tells Mima not to worry about what's happening, and Mima wonders if she's even alive or maybe stuck in a merciless purgatory. Mima is called on stage, and in this scene her character has just murdered someone. The actor of the dead body raises his head and we see it's Murano-san that Mima is hallucinating. She passes out during her recording and Mima wakes up in her room. She's wearing the same clothes as she was before. She hears a voice and turns her head, appearing back on stage. As her co-star asks questions about Mima, she struggles to remember whether she's a pop idol or an actress. The co-star confirms that she has dissociative identity disorder. The real Mima and her character she's playing on the show are reversals of each other. And that was the final take. The crew cheers. Finally, the show Double Bind is finished. The crew claps as Mima seems to be stuck in a congratulations scene from Evangelion. Mima bumps into the lead actress Toko-chan and sees the security guard walking towards her. Toko-chan disappears and the security guard hits her. It's clear that the security guard intends to kill Mima as he holds a knife up to her throat. The security guard refuses to believe that the person he's threatening to kill is Mima. It is shown that the security guard sent the letter, killed the director and assistant director, and tried to get Mima blamed for it all. He tries to endgame Mima as the scene goes on. Mima hits the security guard in the head with a hammer, aiming to kill. She stands over the security guard's body, breathing deeply. The lights turn on. The take is over. That was the final take. The crew cheers. Finally, the show Double Bind is finished. Cutting back to Rima, she searches for Mima around the building. She finds Mima with her clothes torn and runs to her with concern. Rumi asks Mima what happened and Mima walks her to the crime scene. Unbeknownst to her, the security guard is now gone. Rumi states that she's taking Mima back to Mima's room, and if you've been paying attention, that should ring some alarms. Mima wakes up the next morning remembering to call Tadakoro-san, but as the phone rings, we find the slumped over body of Tadakoro-san with his eyes gouged out. What's surprising this time is that we also see the body of the security guard, now for sure dead. Mima looks back to her fish, finding all of them alive once more. She knows something is clearly up, finding a poster, Sham, on her wall where previously there was none. Mima moves the blinds on the window and realizes that this isn't actually her apartment. Pop idol Mima walks up behind her, stating that this is Mima's room. She's brandishing a new outfit, but by looking in the mirror, Mima discovers that pop idol Mima is her manager, Rumi. Mima asks Rumi why she's doing this, her hallucination and or Rumi stating that Rumi went home. With the dialogue that continues, we see that Mima, actually Rumi, has been emailing Mimania-san. Pop idol Mima pulls out a screwdriver and attempts to swipe at Mima. Mima attempts to strangle Pop idol Mima. Pop idol Mima's face contorts into Rumi's face. Mima runs towards the balcony, peering over the edge of a third or fourth story apartment, now with a wound on her shoulder. Rumi regains her composure. As Mima falls to a smaller building, Pop idol Mima keeps the properties of a hallucination by gracefully floating down to Mima. Mima gets a good hit on Rumi that sends her tumbling backwards. She grabs a nearby umbrella and runs at Mima once more. Mima begs Rumi to stop, the pop idol hallucination Rumi Mima look-alike, saying, "You're the one who needs to wake up." Mika saunters into an alleyway, stopped in her tracks by a giant window showing her reflection. Rumi walks up behind her and charges at her, shattering the window. Rumi states, "We don't need two Mimas," and for the first time ever, Mima yells confidently, "I am Mima." Mima pulls the wig off Rumi, detaching her from her pop idol Mima's persona. Rumi goes into hysterics while attempting to grab her wig and stabs herself in the chest with the shattered glass. Rumi yells in pain as she limps towards the street, wig still in hand. She puts the wig on and turns around towards Mima, blood clutching onto her face. A bus drives closer. Rumi hears the sound of a cheering audience in the place of the honk of the bus. She stands up and opens her arms. Mima runs towards Rumi and pushes her out of harm's way. The bus stops and the men driving rush to the girl's aids. In a psychiatric ward somewhere, Rumi takes flowers to her room, murmuring to herself that they're very pretty as a long-haired woman with sunglasses watches from far away. The doctor comments that every now and then she switches back back to her roomie persona. As the woman walks past, nurses whisper to each other that there's a Kiriko Mima lookalike because the star would never be near a psychiatric hospital. Mima takes off her sunglasses and looks into her rearview mirror, smiling as she states that she is real. And roll credits! Sorry, what the fuck? So Perfect Blue covers a lot of the things we're seeing today. Celebrities, deterioration of mental health, trying to find comfort in solitude, and getting to the worst place you've ever been in mentally. Of course, Mima's story is probably not something any of us can relate to, and if you do, I hope you receive psychiatric compensation, but the reality of the whole damn movie is, when a fan's perception of their idol starts getting obsessive, you should probably start criticizing them now because it could cause problems for the celebrity and their fans in the future. Dream. And also, if you're a bystander or someone watching from the outside in, you have no idea what's going on behind closed doors. And lastly, there's a lesson to be learned with every decision you make. Sometimes you choose the wrong career and you have to take 10 steps back. Sometimes change is really difficult to handle and your view on reality distorts. Remember that your feelings are valid, and the more you use your voice to show discomfort, the easier it becomes. Luckily for us, Mima's story finishes on a happy note. She's a celebrity, grounded in reality, and making bank. But can you?